Welcome to the Honest Dog Breeder Podcast with me, your host, Julie Swan, where each week we dive in to discuss all things dog breeding so you can build a breeding business you love, producing dogs that fulfill their owners' dreams. I believe you can have an honest dog breeding program that also pays the bills. So throw those pods in your ears while you're cleaning kennels. I'd love to join you. Guys, ready for some questions on puppy deposits? Let's get right to it. Should puppy deposits be refundable or non-refundable? Breeders love to use non-refundable deposits because they mean that they don't need to worry about paying people back if they cancel. So in theory, it locks in that they want a puppy. It's also nice because in a way, it's a guarantee you can spend that money. Conversely, buyers like refundable deposits because if they don't get a puppy from you, then they get their money back. This seems like goodwill if something unexpected comes up in their life, like they lose their job or have to move. So, what's the right answer? Non-refundable deposits can make breeders feel protected, but they often come across as rigid or unapproachable to buyers. I don't like that. On the other hand, if you have refundable deposits, then they really don't mean much. People could place a deposit on your dogs or another breeder, and then when the first puppy they like is born, they'll just ask for a refund from the other breeders. So, not my favorite. When the entire goal of a deposit is to lock in either that puppy or a puppy from the litter, it feels wrong to allow refunds on deposits. What's worse, if they pay with a credit card, they can flag it, like an item they purchased but never received, and the credit card company will come after you for an explanation and a refund. And those are extremely hard to fight. Many years ago, I had a guy message me once about a refund. I didn't get back to him for a few days. That was my first mistake. And I didn't have a contract. My second mistake. And he just called his card company and said he didn't get the thing that he paid for, and they pulled the money right out of my account in a few days. It's quite easy, but not everybody knows it can be done so easily. The solution is to do a 50% refundable deposit under contract. This way, there is some skin in the game for them, but some goodwill from you. You put it in your contract that the deposit is 50% refundable, no questions asked. This way you don't have people trying to come up with a ridiculous story about their life to try and win your heart over just because they bought a puppy somewhere else. They lost half of what they paid, and that's the arrangement. I remember the first time I tried it. It was right before I had a contract. Embarrassing, I know. One guy messaged me, said he changed his mind and didn't want a dog at this time. I asked if he wanted to wait. He said no. Then asked for a refund on his deposit. On a whim, I said, "No problem. Our deposits are 50% refundable. I'll send that over right away." And I did. At the time, my deposits were only $300, but I was still living in a broke state, and that savings of $150 was huge for me. After it was over, I realized how easy it was. The guy felt good. I felt relieved. Neither of us felt taken advantage of, and it was over. I immediately changed my policy, put that on the website, and a year later, when I finally had a contract, I put it in there too. If you're worried you aren't getting enough guaranteed income in the 50% refundable model, then you should consider doubling your deposit and making it 50% refundable. So for example, if your deposit is $500 on a $3,500 dog, make your new deposit $1,000, 50% refundable. This way, you still get the $500 non-refundable piece that you like to keep, but you maintain the goodwill by offering some refund. If you want the wording I use in my contract that covers the whole deposit, pricing, and what-if situations, you can buy it at honestdogbreeder.com/contract or in the description below. Please understand I am not an attorney, and therefore this is not legal advice. On to question number 2. What if you live in California and now you can't have non-refundable deposits? The new law has come out in 2026 in California, making it illegal to have non-refundable deposits as a breeder there. I know the goal was to stop scams of people pretending to sell puppies accepting deposits, but as often happens, the law won't do much to stop scammers, and it will hurt legitimate breeders trying to run an honest program. Buyers pay deposits to lock in their pick in the litter and to give the breeder confirmation people want pups in their litter. It's a good system. It's important to have skin in the game as a buyer. However, this new law changes all of this. It is asking breeders to remove this component of their business and sort of figure out a new method. So, what do you do? First off, for any of you wondering, trying to relabel the deposit as a reservation doesn't change how courts typically view it. I know I'm not an attorney and this isn't legal advice, but the law doesn't leave much wiggle room on that topic. There's no reason to have your whole contract thrown out in court because of this legal stipulation. I've thought about this one a lot, and I believe it comes down to 3 avenues depending on your ideal puppy buyer. 1, you make your refundable deposit higher so it isn't easy for them to simply place a deposit unless they're serious. Number 2, you make the deposit very low so that if you have to refund it, it isn't that much money. And 3, you don't change your deposit, keeping it the same, just understanding that you'll be responsible for refunding the whole thing if they ask. So, which is right for you? You'll want to increase your deposit rate if your people are a little fickle and are difficult to get to commit. This will force them to commit, and it will be less likely they'll place deposits with multiple breeders because it will affect their cash flow too much. For breeders who are nervous about the refunds and anticipate a lot of refunds, then I would drop your deposit lower so those asking for a refund aren't going to hurt your cash flow. And lastly, if you rarely get people canceling spots on your wait list looking for a refund, then you don't need to change anything. What I might do is remove the wording in your contract that discusses the refund. This way, it will default to state law and not encourage them to ask for a refund. So what this might look like is a line that says, the deposit is this, and it comes off the total price of the puppy, which is this. This way you honor the refund, but don't make it outwardly obvious. This will allow the effect of putting skin in the game to work, but not be in violation of the state law, while not encouraging them to ask for it back if they want to cancel. Despite having 50% refund on my breeding program, I do have a handful of people who have placed a deposit, passed on getting a dog, and haven't asked for a refund. I treat them as though they are in limbo land with a credit at the ranch when they're ready, if they ever are. On to question number 3. Should you have a separate deposit contract? I don't recommend a separate deposit contract, nor a reservation fee, as many attorneys have put it out. I find that in small claims court, you're generally not with an attorney. You often have an arbitrator, which is an official who is really hoping to handle this thing quickly in an hour, given the evidence presented. And he's not going to see that a reservation fee is not a deposit on the dog. Sounds good on paper, but it doesn't often hold up in court from what I've seen. What I recommend is incorporating your deposit amount and agreements in your main contract and having the buyer review and sign the contract before they give you a deposit. The beauty of this is that the contract will dictate the deposit. It will give the buyer full transparency on what to expect with working with you, and it's clean. I also lock in their price with this contract for 12 months. I used to do 24 months, but the economy isn't so much flux. My price has gone up a lot in the past few years, so I like to keep that a little bit shorter time frame. Remember, not an attorney, it's not legal advice, so always good to check with your own attorney when changing your contract. Question number 4. How much should your deposit be? I recommend 25 to 33% of your total price for your deposit. This is adequate skin in the game to get buyers to commit without it feeling greedy. What part of the range should you be on? Well, that depends on your breeding program, your price, and your cash flow needs. If your dogs are $2,000, an easy 25% is $500. On the higher end, near 33%, you're a little over $650. When my dogs were at $1,800, I had my deposit at $600, 50% refundable, and I rarely had issues. I preferred the $600 upfront because it helped my cash flow. It allowed me to get 2 to 3 $600 deposits in a month when I didn't have puppies ready to go home. This covered all my overhead for my breeding business, keeping my personal finances out of it. When the litters went home, I would take that large amount of money and do something with it, such as buy more property, improve the kennels, or work towards my other financial goals. The income from deposits essentially covers all of my breeding expenses. Many of you sell your dogs for $3,500 or more and still only collect $500 deposits, yet struggle with cash flow. Increase your deposits and make your cash flow much easier. I've since moved my dogs up to $2,500, and now the deposit is $800 with $1,700 due at pickup. These are easy numbers and on the higher side of the recommended percentage. For me, deposits are the key to my cash flow, so this is what works for me. In my perfect world, if you took the average number of puppies you sold a year, divided that by 12 months, and aimed to collect that many deposits per month, that cash flow from deposits should cover your entire breeding program overhead. That would allow you to take the litter money when the pups go home as profit or as a chunk of money to invest in facilities or the breeding program in general. So here's an example. If you sell 50 puppies per year, then that's about 4 puppies per month. Your goal would be to collect 4 deposits per month. If your deposits were $500, then those 4 deposits would produce $2,000 per month for you. My goal would be for you to keep your breeding overhead, things like dog food and other monthly costs, under $2,000 per month. If you are feeling like there isn't enough money in the months between litters going home, consider raising your deposit to a higher percentage. This allows you to smooth out your cash flow. If you always have litters and puppies going home all the time, then having a smaller deposit around 25% might make it easier to get more deposits, lock people in, and get them to commit. The cash flow is less important because you have litters going home all the time. If you're insecure about taking people's money, which is common in the beginning of breeding, then go to the 25% until you feel comfortable asking for more. And question number 5, when should you take deposits? A lot of breeders want to wait to take deposits until dogs are bred or puppies are on the ground. Instead, take deposits whenever someone has decided to get a dog from your breeding program. This means you'll be collecting deposits all year round, but potentially, more importantly, you're getting the buyer to commit when they've contacted you and are excited about the dog. Remember, the deposit does a very important thing. It gets the buyer to transition from looking for a puppy to preparing for a puppy. Before a deposit, they can still look around, but if they've placed a deposit, now they are committed. They are excited and will want to get ready for the dog. You allow them to do this when they place a deposit, and it's a gift you're giving to many buyers. Just the same, if they are worried about colors or timing, don't pressure them to give a deposit. Share the probability of what you'll produce as best as you can, and then let them decide. If I think they're more worried about getting a certain pattern on their GSP than they are with getting a dog for my breeding program, then they aren't my ideal puppy buyer, and I'm okay if they move on to another breeder. This is what I always tell people. I recommend placing a deposit when you know you want a bear paw GSP. That way you'll get the best pick from what we have available. And don't forget to send the contract covering the deposit at that time. There you go. The details on puppy deposits and what to do. I promise getting this right makes running your breeding program so much easier. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Honest Dog Breeder Podcast with me, your host, Julie Swan. I appreciate you taking me along in your breeding journey adventures, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. If you found this episode helpful, please tap that like button. It helps me better understand you and supports the channel. If you're a current or aspiring dog breeder, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel to be notified when new videos come out. Thanks.